Hi, everybody. So I am continuing my growth mindset hacks, smiley face, series where I talk about two types. Basically, they're each other's shadow. And today on the docket, I got my nails done and I thought, well, who would best appreciate the aesthetics of my nails? And that would be, that I haven't done yet, it would be an SE or an extroverted sensing Dom, which would be either ESTP, which I've already done, or an ESFP. So you guys are on the docket today, and your shadow is an ISFJ and vice versa. So for the ISFJ, your shadow is an ESFP. So this is going to be using the cognitive functions, which is Swiss psychologist Carl Jung's findings, which are absolutely brilliant, and I highly suggest you dive into them a little deeper than what I'm going to give you today, which is essentially just a very brief overview of kind of the parts that make up who you are, the top four, which are like the tip of your iceberg, and then the bottom four. So everybody has all eight. It's basically how we prefer to move through the world. So your top four are the ones that you really utilize the most. And then the bottom four, of course, are those shadows that you don't quite use as often. So we're going to talk about utilizing them and growing to be a more well-rounded individual. As a caveat, I'm not saying to dive into your shadow side so much that you lose who you are and your strengths. Absolutely not. This is just to say, to make you a more well-rounded individual and to make you aware basically of how you are comprised as a person. Is really fascinating how you can break this stuff down. And if you've seen my other videos, I think I've done 4 other ones so far. This is going to be a lot of the same information, so you can feel free to skip this one if you want and just send it to your ESFP and ISFJ friends if you're another type. Or maybe you'd like to learn about them. Maybe you have some loved ones in your life that are these two types. So without further ado, let's start with the ESFP. So ESFPs, you guys are so fun and lively. I believe that was my mother's type when she was on this earth. I've said that a few times in my videos. Life of the party, always making friends, she's just a chatterbox and energizer bunny. You are to me like the quintessential extrovert and performer. So your first function is SE, or extroverted sensing. And essentially this, and again, I'm going to simplify it to its very essence, which is very NI, or introverted sensing of me, if you know the functions already. This is being in the present moment, really enjoying your 5 senses. So a lot of athletes, people that just need to be grounded in the here and now, are usually lead SE. People that are really good with just like aesthetics. So this is something you're good at. You're probably a sharp dresser and care how you look, I'm guessing. But you never know. There are variations, of course, to each type. Next, you would have FI, so this is being your second function, like your auxiliary. It's kind of helping out the SE. These are your self-values. These are things that you really love and appreciate. I guess I should put a heart here. Next, you have TE, or extroverted thinking. This is essentially systems building, thinking out loud. And your fourth function that makes up the top 4 for you, to round it out, is introverted intuition, or it's always abbreviated as NI. This is future thinking, and I'm just going to write future, and very linear patterns. So you are able to kind of see how A goes to B goes to C in a very linear fashion, like I said. All right, so that's the ESFP. Now your shadow functions, which if you're an ISFJ and you're watching this video, essentially these are your top 4 that we're about to talk about, and you would take, if you took these 4 that I'm about to talk about and put them up top above the ESFP, this is your shadow, which we'll get to in a little bit. So for the ISFJ, or the ESFP function, or function, oh my goodness, shadow. You, my friends, I like to think of ISFJs, which I think my sister-in-law might be an ISFJ. They're just very sweet. They're very quiet. a lot of your nurses, I know that's a stereotype, are ISFJs. I think that's why these types are so complementary, because you've got like the performer with sort of like the quiet caregiver. Just very sweet souls. So that's what, when I think of ISFJs, I just think of like someone that's super sweet. Demure almost would be a good word for it. So they lead, which you'll see the pattern here before I get to this. When the ESFP has something extroverted, like this is extroverted sensing, you'll see in the ISFJ it's going to be introverted. And then when they have it introverted, they're going to have it extroverted. And of course, it's vice versa. So essentially, each of these two types are each other's inverse. It's like an inside out version of each other. It's like looking into a mirror and things are similar, but like it's flipped. It's really crazy. And when you realize your type, and then you can kind of see your friendships, you see, whoa, this is why we get along and things click, but also why there's certain misunderstandings. So I think it's good to be aware of who you are and who others are. So their leading function is introverted sensing, which is SI, and this mostly has to do with things in the past, traditions, and things of comfort. So whereas an SE might not put a lot of value on comfort or traditions, they just kind of want to go with the flow, an SE wants that like stability. So again, extroverted, introverted, but both sensing. Next would be FE, or extroverted feeling, and this is connection, considering the group, warmth, empathy. I could put a heart here too, because even though FI put a heart, it's like your own heart versus, maybe I should put two hearts, group heart. This is considering the group, the feelings, kind of reading the room, but this is more like, hey, how do I feel about something? Doesn't mean it's selfish, it's just different. And this doesn't mean it's superficial, it's just considering the group. I think sometimes FI and FE kind of miss each other and get misunderstood sometimes. I might just do a whole video about FE, which I have one. It's old if you go back. It's like ENFJ's take on FE or something, or my thoughts on FE. But I might do another one, just talk about how it's misunderstood, because I think it really is. Next is introverted thinking, or TI. Not the rapper. Bad joke. And this is essentially your subjective logic, or kind of knowing your why. And another little tidbit I want to add real quick is that these introverted functions, the ones with the I, are usually very deep. And then the ones that are extroverted, the ones with the E, are usually more breadth. So it's breadth versus depth. It's hard to say that, breadth. So it's more expansive versus going really deep and into detail. So all are good, all are useful. It's like pieces of a puzzle. You just, they're good for different things and different reasons. We all have different strengths. So ISFJ is your last function. This is probably why a lot of you might think you're scatterbrained or ADD or ADHD. I don't know. It's probably because you have NE, which is extroverted thinking, which is, I call it the brainstorming function, or abstract thinking, connecting random bits of information. So whereas NI is linear, you're kind of just like all over the place. And I made a triangle. I should have made like a different kind of shape, because it really is just so random. All right, so that is kind of just a basic overview. So then comes the growth mindset part. So you're thinking, okay, if I'm an ESFP, how can I kind of bulk up and become more well-rounded and dive into my shadow? So what I like to tell people, and what they show online too, is that these top three are usually fairly strong. And of course, if you feel like your third function, or maybe if you skip your second function, you can bulk that up too. But in general, I would say the growth area for an ESFP would start with their fourth function and then dive into their shadow. So we'll call this the ESFP area of growth. So for you, ESFP performers, you might want to start really considering your future, because you're usually in the moment. So this might be helpful for you to kind of think ahead and say, okay, what are the implications of these present choices? Which also get you into your TE too, I guess, because you're kind of building those goals and things, but really considering consequences and things like that. Then the next thing you would want to work on is maybe incorporate some traditions. This is something I also need to do, and thinking about the past. And I think it helps to kind of look at the past in order to see the future. Of course, it's good to be present, to be mindful, which is what I'll tell the ISFJs to work on, of course, since this is their shadow. But for you as ESFPs, because you're so present, you're so in the here and now, I think it's good to consider these things. Now, of course, your strengths, I'm not saying don't leverage them. God made you this way for a reason, so please keep doing you. But this is just to help you grow and stretch yourself just a little bit. Next is you would want to work on your FE. So you would want to really consider the group when you're doing something or making a decision. I think because if you're already solid on your FI, this is important to start to think about others. And of course, you want to know your why you're doing something and really get personal into your logic. And then lastly, you'd want to work on kind of brainstorming and connecting unrelated ideas, because you're a little more strong in doing the linear thinking, but really this would be something that would probably, since it's your last function, it would probably be a struggle, but it could be fun to really connect unrelated ideas. All right, so now for my ISFJ folks, so let's pretend we cut this, put it on top of the ESFP, and we're going to start with your fourth function, which is extroverted intuition, and then we're going to go up here. This is your shadow, so this is the ISFJ area of growth. And growth is painful, so this stuff isn't easy, I'll tell you. Because when I go into my little INFP shadow, sometimes it can be, it's like, what in the world? Who am I? So starting with your NE, which will be fun for you because it's not so far down that it's in that shadow area as far as like it's in your top 4. So play with this, have some playful, I always tell people if you want to do improv or something fun where you're just connecting unrelated ideas, find activities that stretch your brain in that way, puzzles and stuff that make you think outside the box. Then you're going to work on mindfulness, being present, considering the aesthetics, which I actually notice a lot of ISFJs and ISTJs who have SE lower down. They actually, sometimes the way they dress, I'm like so impressed. It's like they've worked on this. And then next, your FI. So this, now you're going to consider yourself. ISFJs, you're, like I said, you're kind of the nurses, the caregivers for the most part. You take care of people. Now let's take care of yourself. Let's love ourselves. Let's find ways to, not in a selfish way, but in a way that honors you. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are your values? Next, TE, extroverted thinking, systems building. So this would be go along with what goals and dreams you have and kind of making that concrete, which also can tie into your NI. So in that future, where do you want to go? So maybe these all tying in together. Maybe ISFJs, if you, this kind of makes me think, maybe if you haven't been considering yourself and your dreams and your goals and you're very much in FE land here, maybe it's time to figure out using these functions how you can, you know, get the life that you want and your dreams and your goals. Yeah, so I hope that helps. And speaking of life and goals and dreams, I am a life coach and I love it. And I'm looking for new clients all the time. I would love to hear from you if you want to know how to get to your goals and dreams. And of course, we can utilize the functions in your personality type, but we don't have to. I've got many modalities and ways we can get you where you want to be. I love listening to people, even if you don't have a specific goal. If you just say, you know what, Rebecca seems like a nice person. I would love her to be a non-judgmental, empathetic ear or a cheerleader. I'm very much love to be there for you. Please email me. My email is RebeccaPebble@yahoo.com. And my website is RebeccaPebble.com, which I'll put, hopefully I'll make a little end screen here so you can have that. But thank you guys for watching. I think I've only got 3 more of these left. They're so much fun. I hope it's educational and helpful and adding value into your life. I think the more we know ourselves and others, we can create a beautiful, harmonious world, which is the goal Know thyself, which is so important, and others, right? Because then we realize why we're triggered. We realize why we connect or don't connect with people, and we can, instead of letting our egos get in the way and taking it personally, we can say, you know what? Hey, this is how this person's wired, or this person, or whatever your type is. And you see the beauty in the differences, and you can see how some synergy, and you can see how to utilize your strengths, how to build up your weaknesses, and how to take that in consideration when you're interacting with others. So it's a beautiful self-growth, self-knowledge. It's a very beautiful thing. So I send everybody so much love. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.